back to the person behind the title, the podcast where we explore the human stories, insights and experience shaping the legal profession across Wales. I'm delighted today to be joined by Fflur Jones, managing partner at Darwin Gray, head office based in the centre of Cardiff on Cathedral Road, and a further office in Bangor in North Wales. So lovely to see you again, and a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Something that we like to start to kind of warm up and things like that is something quite simple. So I suppose during a busy day, and I know how busy you are, probably 7 days a week, are you reaching for a tea or coffee?
Well, as you can see, I've just made myself a coffee. So I'm most certainly a coffee person in the morning, but after lunch, I do also enjoy a cup of Earl Grey.
Ah, very nice. Okay. And so obviously before we dive deeper into your role here at Darwin Gray, what would you say the best piece of career?
I received various pieces of information and sort of advice over the time I've been working, which has been a long time now.
Yeah.
I think probably the most important thing I was advised was, that preparation. Don't leave things to the last minute. Sort of glide over thing, attention to detail is second to none. Obviously, as lawyers, that's incredibly important that we observe that at all times. Another quite good top tip I was given was if you're going for an interview, that you should also think about it in the way that you're gauging whether the firm or the company or the organisation you're going for is right for you. Because I think there's a tendency when you're younger to think, oh my gosh, I've got to impress these people and I desperately want the job. But it's good sometimes, and it's quite confidence fulfilling to think, well, hang on, is this place right for me, my personality, my characteristics and so forth, and my skill set? So I think that can be quite empowering if you think about it like that when you're younger.
Yeah, and I think I've seen the way that interviews have changed over the years it's a very much two-way process. It's an interview from the candidate side, but also the client side.
Yeah.
And it's a two-way process, isn't it? Because not everyone is the right fit for one organisation.
No.
So I think that's a really, really interesting piece of career advice, which I think is highly important, especially in a competitive market, isn't it? Especially across the board, really. I suppose if you weren't a lawyer and you weren't in legal, what do you think you'd be doing instead? Do you ever have any? Did you always know that you wanted to be a lawyer?
Well, I did know I wanted to be a lawyer from quite a young age because I've always been very interested in justice, if you like, and I've got quite a keen sense of justice and right and wrong and so forth. Having said that, my first sort of degree was in history and actually sort of Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic, which was kind of ancient history, if you like. And I always have a hankering after being a sort of academic historian as well. But I then did a master's in legal and political theory, so I'm really into politics as well.
Yeah.
And then if you look back to my sort of career piece I wrote when I was 15 or something, I said I wanted to be a nurse or an archaeologist or a doctor. So lots of things take my interest, but probably if I wasn't doing this, I'd either be a historian or a politician, I think.
And that's the next question on that. Employment, obviously, employment always what you practiced, or did you?
So, I did my training contract in another law firm in Cardiff, which is a massive commercial law firm. So obviously I've got experience across lots of different commercial law disciplines. But employment always attracted me because of the people element. So you get to do sort of commercial type work, but you also get involved in people's everyday lives, really, because the workplace accounts for so much time that we spend living and breathing. So what happens to people in the workplace can have a very big impact on them. And I really care about that, both from the employee side, if I'm acting for the employees, but also very passionate about making employers work better and be as efficient as they can in the way that they go about employing the workforce.
And I suppose especially with the changes in employment, it's an ever-changing, it's an ever-changing practice, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, at the moment, it's mad because there is so many new pieces of legislation coming through. The Employment Rights Act, obviously, to 2025 is making us all scratch our heads and think how far-reaching the impact of it will be. but it keeps it interesting. It's I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I suppose you continuously, I think they say in every job, isn't it? You're continuously learning, aren't you?
Yeah, well,
Probably even more so in the legal field. You
Yeah.
are continuously having to make sure you're at the top of your game to be able to advise your clients in the best way.
Absolutely. And, this current period is a massive learning curve for us all. We're sort of dependent on the guidelines given to us by government and so forth. And then you're having to look back at what case law has been in respect of cases beforehand, under previous sort of iterations of legislation, and trying to work out what's best for employers to do and employees.
Interesting times. So I suppose your role is probably split as managing partner and obviously practicing, obviously feeling in your role. How would you describe what your role truly involves on a day-to-day basis within Darwin Gray?
Well, my role has evolved a lot over the past sort of 4 or 5 years, because prior to then I wasn't the managing partner. So I was a partner for some time, which involved being the head of employment at the employment team, and so quite a bit of management obviously involved in that, but then also being very much on the tools, as you were, running cases and so forth. Now it's a slightly different split. There's more management time, more time spent on the sort of strategy of the firm and trying to make the firm the best it can be, which I really enjoy. But I still keep my hand in a bit with the employment law and regulatory case law load as well.
I suppose I'm trying to manage your time between the elements of your role is quite difficult.
Yes, that's been one of the biggest challenges, is actually knowing when, how and where to start and stop the different elements. Obviously, you get adjustments in targets and so forth to try and encourage you to do the managing partner job more, because the cases are what comes easiest. It can be tempting to go, I'll just do another case instead of worrying about the firm's strategy for the next 4 years. I'm pretty good at trying to do both.
Has changed considerably over the last 2 years as a whole, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the firm has grown a lot. So, we were kind of bumping along sort of 30, 35 people here, turnover of a certain amount for years and years. And then in the past couple of years, we've now edging towards 55, 60 people. So not quite doubled, but a massive growth. And the same with the turnover. We've doubled it in just under 3 years. So it's a big change. And that's actually been one of the challenges as well, is to change what I do and how I do things to reflect the fact that the firm is in a very different place.
I suppose as you grow as a business, there's more challenges, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your role evolves even more, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's keeping up with all of that. I'm very lucky. I've got an amazing consultant I work with who acts as a sounding board and kind of keeps me on the straight and to help me, because obviously a lot of this is new. And one other thing I did was I went on a course for managing partners to try and learn how to do the job, because I realised about a year in, it's like, well, why do I think I know how to do this? Because I've never actually been taught how to do it. And that course paid dividends, basically.
I think it's like when you first step into management, isn't it? You kind of grow into that role, don't you?
Yeah.
You know how to do it. And it's about taking that advice and maybe someone who's done that role previously, isn't it?
Exactly.
I suppose from the partners I know, I think you're very well supported in terms of different practice areas. I think everyone's great in terms of what they. So it's good that you have that strong partnership, isn't it? To be able to, you're not just on your own as such, is it?
No, we're a very close-knit team, and we try and support each other as best we can. Each department has seen a big growth spurt. Our presence in North Wales has increased massively. We've sort of opened new departments. So it's all very exciting. It's just quite a lot of work from time to time.
I suppose from the partners I know, they've been here a long time, haven't they? You've got the homegrown partners that have been there from kind of newly qualified through. So I think they've seen the journey as well, isn't it? As well as you, which is quite unusual for, puts you in a fantastic position, because people who work in your firm have seen the firm develop and grow.
Well, that's one part of the job that is challenging is to make sure you try and keep it so that people enjoy working here.
Yeah.
Try not to, flog people. It's more about making sure people have got a bit of a work-life balance, but also that they get really interesting work to do.
Yeah.
Because as the firm has grown and evolved, that's something that's changed as well, is the quality of the work and the sort of different types of clients that come through the door.
Yeah.
The workload is much more varied than it used to be.
Yeah. I suppose from people outside of the firm in terms of maybe family and friends, what would you say that might be surprised to learn about your role?
I suppose the amount of juggling that goes on and how you have to be quite versatile and ready to, be doing one thing in 1 minute and then turn your attention to something else. And also how by trying to be the sort of front-facing face of the firm, that has its own challenges as well, when sometimes you're desperate to try and finish a piece of work and you've got to go to a dinner or something and do all of the networking that's required of the job as well.
I suppose I obviously know a lot about Darwin Gray, but what would you say that makes it unique?
Well, I think there is a couple of things. The first thing is the bilingual nature of the firm. So we have a strong cohort of Welsh speakers who are fee earners, and our North Wales office is made up solely of Welsh speakers at the moment. That means we're very, very competitive to receive and win Welsh language work. So that sort of bilingual element is incredibly rare, I think, as commercial law firms, to the extent it is here. The other thing is that, as I said earlier, we are trying to make sure people have a good work-life balance and so forth. And I know every firm will say they're doing that, but that is actually reflected in our targets, both sort of in terms of how much time we require people to spend on work and what we expect people to recover and so forth. That is quite different to our competitors in terms of where we put our expectations. So what I'm trying to say, I suppose, is we're trying to live what we say we are about.
Which is a balance in that. It's a difficult, I suppose it's difficult for any business, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I suppose in terms of obviously balancing existing talent and bringing in fresh new ideas, how do you feel you balance that?
I don't think that's ever been a massive problem, because we are lucky in the sense that we've got an incredibly talented team of people here, right from sort of the trainees to the partners. And lots of people have got really cool new ideas about how to do things or what to do and so forth. So we are very open to that. I like to think that the continuity and the fact that, people obviously like working here, otherwise they wouldn't stay here, isn't a barrier to also generating new ideas. So a good example, obviously, is our decision to set up the Wales HR network, which we did in conjunction with Acorn Recruitment. And that was kind of a great kind of idea, because there was nothing of its kind in Wales at the time. I came out of this feeling that, lawyers get rewarded by being named and the Legal 500 in chambers, but there was nothing for HR consultants. So that was the sort of initial idea behind it, and it's now grown, and we do lots of training sessions and so forth. But that's an example of us being agile and able to, think outside the box all the time. So I don't think that continuity of service here is a barrier to also being, able to respond to things.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think from the first meeting that I had with you, you gave real life examples of the staff that have been there for newly qualified and they progressed through to senior section and recently through to partnership. And that was examples that we're able to speak to candidates about. And that's evident from just looking at the staff that you've had in the firm in terms of how long they've been here. That's really, I think that's, especially you can see that about how you've grown by 20 headcount in the last 2 years, but also how you've retained people from newly qualified. And I think that's really good in terms of the way you've balanced it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We do get a lot of people saying when they come for interview, they're looking for kind of their forever home. I think lawyers probably are split into two camps. The ones that think, I'd like to have a sort of stable career in one place and, sort of really invest in the ethos. And ultimately, obviously, if you become an equity partner or a director, if it's a limited company, you become the owner. So you become a business person as well. And then there are others who think, no, I like to have flight of foot and jump about a bit. But those who like the sort of steady continuity, and also because we do reward people ultimately, well, not everybody, obviously, but with, there is a path to equity here, which is maybe something that sets us slightly apart as well. Sense that we do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I suppose from our side, how do you ensure that ourselves at TSR Legal represent your employee brand accurately? Because I know it's really, really important to you and in terms of your growth and your reputation. But how would you say that you ensure that we represent you in the best possible light?
Well, you and I have had some conversations, haven't we, about what our requirements are. We've had conversations with your colleagues as well. I think the closer we work with you for the longer period of time, the more you get to know us and the more you kind of instinctively know what we're looking for. I mean, obviously the Welsh language element is big. We would love to recruit more people for North Wales as well. That's easier said than done. But, I think you hear us and you do everything you can to support us, mainly by virtue of making sure you stay attuned to what we're up to, which is, appreciated.
I suppose this is probably a question that you probably see in the last years. What challenges do you face running a law firm?
Well, there are many challenges. Obviously, sometimes you wake up in a sweat thinking, oh gosh, I've got all these people to be responsible for, and there are things that you can't control, like economic downturns and changes in government. That's kind of on the horizon at the moment, isn't it, in Wales and possibly UK level. So there are things that you can't control, but what you have to come back to is what you can control. So you try and make sure that your mechanisms are in place, to be as tight as you can with all the internal things that you need to worry about so that you can be resilient and ready to weather any storms that might happen. Because, as I say, you can never quite know what those are. What we found is having a good strategy in place and trying to keep to that has been also instrumental in turning the firm around, really, from great firm to something that's even more sort of tight and successful.
Yeah, I suppose that's even more important when there's more firms coming into the area. The market is becoming even more competitive. There's firms that are based out of the area that recruit remote people and things like that. So I think I suppose it's really, really important that is in place, isn't it?
It is. And that is another challenge, is the fact that there are more and more competitors at a local level. Again, you can't control that, but what you can control is that you make sure everything is as good as it can be here, and then also that you shout from the rooftops about what makes us special and why we might be the firm of choice to employees and also to clients alike.
Darwin Gray has got a fantastic reputation, not just in South Wales, but across Wales. What would you say that the secret is to maintaining that strong local community feel while continuing to grow?
I think it's about the people that we have here. We have a lot of people local to the area here and in Bangor who know their communities, who are quite embedded in their communities, who therefore have got quite good referral networks. We also have a very strong CSR committee who gets stuck in on various aspects. Currently, we are this year supporting Roald Dahl Children's Charity. We've done several in the past. So there's a lot of community level activities we get involved in as well, which is great fun.
And obviously the Welsh legal market is a very close-knit community. What do you feel that sets Darwin Gray apart? We've obviously kind of touched on this previously, but what do you think sets you apart from the competition in Cardiff?
Well, I think I've kind of covered that in the sense that I think, our bilingualism is a massive USP. So it's the fact that we actually live the values of what we say in terms of people's targets are and so forth, that we are serious about trying to get people to have a life as well as service clients effectively.
And that's the way the world is changing with AI and automation being such a prominent topic within not just within the legal sector, but across the globe. How much of it is hype, and how much do you think is generally changing how you work at Darwin Gray?
It's playing an ever-growing part in how we work. We've invested in Co-Counsel, which is a PLC-driven or Thomson Reuters-driven specialist AI product for lawyers, and that's working out really well. We're all kind of still getting to know it a bit, but we're using it more and more. Then there's challenges about what do you do about some of the other AI tools, because some of them are not that accurate, especially in the context of more junior staff members who don't yet know what they don't know. And that's the biggest challenge, because AI is only really as good as what you pump into it, and that you can then interrogate that, as in enough about what it churns out to know whether it's right or not. So we're finding our way at the moment through it. We've got sort of AI policy in place. We're going to do some training on that this week. In fact, we've got very clear guidelines about what level of employee is allowed to use it for what, which I think is really important. So hopefully that gives clients a lot of comfort, and also effectively, we don't let anything be generated without the human element or the human input, because obviously ultimately that's our job, is to make sure, and the nuance of the human brain isn't quite replicated in what it produces anyway.
And I suppose it's from two sides, isn't it? It's from the client side, but also from the employee side, isn't it? We've had some clients that have said that they have to be using AI to be able to work with the clients. Do you ever come up with, I suppose, do you have questions from the client side about AI and how we use it? Or
sometimes people ask, and it's becoming more common that if you win public sector tenders, that there are provisions about how and to what extent can you use it and so forth. So we have to be careful of all of that. But we also find, obviously, if we're acting for employees, individuals, private clients, that they might have used a lot of AI before they get to us to generate grievances or to generate documents and so forth. And that can be quite challenging, because they won't quite know what they're looking for, what is a good grievance and what isn't, and all the rest of it. I suppose that can sometimes add to our workload as opposed to helping us. And the same then if we're acting for employers, sometimes they have to deal with those AI generated documents, and that can be quite challenging.
I can imagine. So I suppose for running a firm, I can imagine it'd be quite an interesting next few years in terms of how it continue, and the way it shapes people's roles within a law firm, isn't it? Whether there be certain new role firms to adapt to AI and automation, isn't it?
Yes.
It'd be interesting to see.
I mean, I think I caught up with like a person who specializes, I suppose, in AI delivery for law firms, and he was describing how there is a cohort of law firms that are kind of, cutting edge, using all the time, know exactly what they're doing with it. And then there's a massive squeezed middle who are kind of feeling their way and whatever. I think we're probably towards the top end of the squeezed middle. I wouldn't say that we know exactly what we're doing, but we are at least applying our minds to it and trying, to make sure that we're using it in a responsible way, and also that our regulatory responsibilities are not overlooked as well.
I suppose you've has a lot of questions that I put together, but if you touched on these previously, but I suppose it's a big talking point within the market, I suppose, see what you've touched on previously, but how do you balance kind of well-being and flexibility with maintaining that sort of teamwork and accountability within the...
Well, we try to have a laugh. That's really important. And, we do organise nights out, and, the CSR committee organises events and so forth. So we do all of that. And also we set realistic targets for people. So we're not, saying to people that they've got to record millions of hours a day. It's all trying to be realistically set to enable people also to do the other parts of the job, which is business development and so forth. Because if none of us go out and meet people and increase our networks, then we're not going to be sort of perpetuating the success of the firm. So there's all of that really. We've got good policies in place about flexible working, and, got quite a few part-timers and so forth, and seems to work for most people.
Spoke about.
Yeah.
I've got, I don't know, two people here that have returned from maternity leave, and I've got young children and things like that, and being able to balance being a parent as also being a lawyer, isn't it? So
yes, exactly.
We difficult over the years, isn't it?
It has, and I don't, law firms traditionally have not been known for their family-friendly ethos, but we are acutely aware of that, and as far as I'm aware, those people who are in those positions, are finding it fine. And also sometimes people say, I'll come back and do, I don't know, 3 days a week. And then suddenly they realise that that's problematic. So we just have a conversation.
But I suppose that helps from your background, being managing partner, but also being head of employment and having an employment background.
Well, absolutely.
You understand it.
Well, yeah, and I'm acutely aware of what our responsibilities are. But I like to think it's more than that, it's almost like if you haven't got a happy workforce, or people who are actually enjoying coming to work and, look forward to it to the extent that anyone looks forward to going to work, then you're never going to get the best out of people. And that goes then to, issues around home life and children and bereavement, all sorts of things.
Trying to support your staff, isn't it? But that touches on what we spoke about. That's retention, isn't it? If you've got a happy workforce, then you can have a good retention rate.
Well, absolutely. And, I just think that, lots of law firms think of maternity or times off for reasons without the employee's control as some big events. But if you think about the investment in them in the long term, it's a blip of an eye, a few months off for a baby or something, isn't it? So I think just being quite, I don't know, open-minded about that and looking at the bigger picture is really helpful.
Like, treat people how you love to be treated yourself, isn't it?
Exactly.
I think it's something you hit now out there. So from your side, what does success look like to you in your role and the firm?
Well, one of the challenges is to make sure that the culture that we used to have here, and before we sort of set up a proper strategy and, we sort of did more forward-looking sort of planning, was to make sure that culture survived, and especially as the firm grew as well. Because it's all very easy to, hit certain targets, financial targets, time targets, and client development targets. But what's harder to maintain or retain is that culture. So for me, I suppose when I come to the end of my term as a managing partner, what I'd like to think that I can achieve, or the challenge for me, I suppose, is to not only have grown the firm substantially in the way that, our strategy calls for, but that also people still think it's a good place to work and that they enjoy coming here, they still have a laugh, and also that the new people who join buy into that culture as well.
And I suppose that is one of my last points is, I suppose, looking ahead, you're talking about strategy, you have all these meetings. What excites you most about the kind of the direction that Darwin Gray is going in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, we're kind of building on the successes of the past 3 or 4 years, I suppose. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is the opportunity really to secure even bigger and better and more varied and interesting types of work for our workforce, because, I think that's really key to keeping. These are clever people who like to be challenged mentally. So having that sort of scope to do a rich variety of work, I think, is really, really important.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time. It's been an absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you.
I don't know if you've got anything else to add at all, but it's been fantastic to speak to you. Thank you for your time. It's been exciting to see the growth in the last 2 or 3 years, and it's exciting to see what the next 3 to 5 years brings for Darwin Gray. So thank you. It's been a pleasure. To our listeners, thank you for listening, and we're back with another episode shortly. Thank you.